So a watch that looks and feels like $1,000,000 but costs less than a gold tooth? Oh yeah. What's up guys, it's your boy Rich here, back at it again. And let's go take a closer look at Klynt's EC-01. Let's go. And here it is, Klynt's EC-01. And there is a lot of beauty and details to this watch that I'm not sure where to begin. So let me begin with the dimensions. It is 43.5 millimeters, 52 millimeters from lug to lug, 12.5 millimeters thin, and with a 22 millimeter lug width. And even though I tried to buy some time on where to begin, I'm still not sure exactly where to begin. So, where do I begin? Alright, well, this is a good place to begin right here. So let's start with the dial. This dial has multi-layers going on right in here. And basically this is a fully skeletonized dial, but concealed properly with just the right amount of restraint. I think a fully skeletonized front is fine for a brand like Cartier because they're Cartier, but I think for a newer brand that might have come across as perhaps maybe gimmicky and cheap and the kind of watch that we could get from AliExpress. So I think the Klynt team did a really nice job with just the right amount of exposure on the dial right here. And they use this honeycomb pattern right here as one way to conceal some of the movement, yet we can still see through it. And the same goes for the hour and minute hands. It is carved out toward the bottom right there, so we can still see through it, through the movement. And one of the unique things that caught my eye was this sub-second dial right there at 9 o'clock. It sort of looks like a compass right there. If you see the second hand rotating right there, it really looks like a compass, including the numbers right there. It is just a really nice touch, a really unique sub-second dial hand right there that is not really common among watches. It is a really cool, it's a very cool touch actually. And then they used a nice amount of screws right there, a few screws right there on the dial. It just all comes together really, really well. And I like what they did with two halves of the dial. The right side of the dial, they did numbers, right? Where it says 60 right there, 5, 10, 15, and then down to 30 right here. And then on the left half of the dial, it's done in sort of this, I guess triangles would be the best way for me to explain it. Pretty cool, another nice attention to detail. Two halves of the dial basically. And both the numbers and these triangles are applied. And now let's talk about their logo right here where it says Klynt. And the people at Klynt, mainly the Bruno, who is one of the co-owners, put me through the tester and he asked me, what do I see when I see their logo right there? And my initial response was, well, the top part of it, the round part of it right up there, it reminds me of an astronaut's helmet. When in fact, this logo is supposed to be a road that leads through a tunnel. And I'll put up their full logo right there so we can see it. And then here's a picture of the artwork that inspired the name of the watch and the whole concept of this watch by Swedish artist Hilma Klynt, who was a pioneer in contemporary art. And it was her journey of breaking through codes of realistic painting that inspired them. And I always find that fascinating to learn anything that inspires a watchmaker. The EC-01 is in a black dial, but it is also available in a rose gold PVD, a rose gold PVD with a black bezel, and an all black PVD model. Alright, it's time to put this beauty on. Hold on a second. And you know what time it is. It's time for some wrist shots. So let's continue on with the details of this watch and let's give some attention to the lugs right here, which is something that we don't usually take note of. And this is done in a mostly brushed outer trim, but then it is carved out and filled with this frosted segment on all four lugs. So now let's turn it over and look at the side profile of this watch and more details. It is in a brushed and polished finish, but then there are these segments carved out right here. Very attractive. And then on this other side, same thing, brushed, polished with these carved out segments right here, and with a really nice crown guard, and there is their, on the crown, there's their logo, and with this frosted background right there. And now let's give some attention to the strap. There is their logo right there. This is a genuine calfskin strap, but watch when I turn it over. Look how pretty that is. Most leather straps will simply say genuine leather, but not Klynt. I mean, Klynt goes all out. Look, it's just very classy. There it says Klynt, and it's sort of raised right there with insignia underneath, and genuine leather with more insignia. Just extremely classy. Just a beautiful strap. And the strap system itself is an easy strap system, changing strap system. We just have to pull out the pins right there whenever we want to change out the strap, so no tools are required. So now let's look at this case back as if I need to say anything about it. It is a beautiful, beautiful case back. It has polished on the it is polished on the outside, and then it has these 4 quadrants of a frosted finish. Extremely, extremely tasteful. This has to be one of the best and unique case backs that I've seen. There's more information on the case back right there. So, what is this movement that we're seeing? What powers this watch? Well, they use a Sellita 290. It's a top-grade Sellita movement. And the main difference between a 290 and a 200 is that the 290 will have 31 joules versus 26 joules. And another difference is on the 290, the sub-second style is usually at the 9 o'clock versus the 200's central seconds. So let's go back to this case back. Very, very, very nice, very attractive with their custom rotor right there, and done in a perlage finish. In my opinion, this is a beautiful watch with a lot of details and with a top grade Sellita movement. And the price of the EC-01 is roughly $1,600. And we're back, and I think the history, or short history, for Klynt watches is really interesting because they did not succeed their first time around with their initial campaign on Kickstarter, and according to Bruno, he deemed it a failure because they did not raise their funding goal of $100,000 in the first 30 days. However, they did start off really strongly. They raised $55,000 in their first 15 days, but then there was a sudden drop-off from their backers. They suddenly had cold feet because they were cynical on whether or not Klynt watches could produce this awesome watch in time and on budget. But Bruno and the Klynt team were able to show that they could pull off the ET series. No. The EC series by going back to the drawing board and renegotiating with their suppliers and making sure that the minimum order wasn't so high so they could enter production sooner. And in fact, through my communications with Bruno, I labeled him the Rocky Balboa of watchmakers because Rocky was this underdog, yet he was always determined. And despite the brutal beatings he would receive from Clubber Lang and Ivan Drago, Rocky would somehow end up triumphant. And one of my favorite Rocky motivational speeches, and probably one of the best of all time, was when Rocky said, "Life ain't about how hard you hit.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done."
Do I think Klynt watches are expensive? Well, I think micro brands as a whole are starting to evolve, and just like mainstream brands that have an entry-level, mid-tier, and high-end watches, I think that applies to micro brands as well. And I think that's where Klynt watches falls under, the higher-end micro brands, because they are that good. And in my opinion, I think micro brands should continuously evolve. I don't think that they should stay in that $200 to $400 price range that we're comfortable with. If they are going to improve and have better choice of movement and better qualities, then their prices are organically going to have to increase as well. But I don't think that they would or should reach the price levels of the mainstream brands, because that's part of their allure. And through their never quit spirit and from their second effort on Kickstarter, they were able to deliver on this watch, which gave Klynt instant street cred or microbrand watch cred. So what's next for Klynt watches? Here's a sneak peek. That blue one has my name written all over it, and I will have a full hands-on review for that shortly. I believe that will be available on Kickstarter starting November 7th, so I'm really looking forward to introducing you to the new collection. And the new collection will have two versions, one in a quartz, because a lot of you requested a quartz version, and the other in an automatic. But instead of using the Sellita 290, I believe it will use the Sellita 200, which is still a fine movement. And there are two kickers this time. And because of the success of the E-Series, Klynt could have charged the same amount or even an increased amount for their next collection. So here is the first kicker. The new collection will actually be much more affordable. The quartz version will go for 299 Swiss francs, or roughly $300, and the automatic version will go for 499 Swiss francs, or roughly $500. I think you just have to provide your email address. So this makes another attractive Swiss watch by Klynt. And the second kicker is the size. The new collection will be in a fantastic 40 millimeters, which I think is a great universal size for a sports watch. So earlier I asked this question. Do I think Klynt watches are expensive? In my opinion, the answer is no. This is a lot of watch with a ton of details that could easily go for 2, 3, 4 times more expensive if it had the Omega name on it, for example. I like their never die spirit and what they stand for. I like the direction of Klynt. And instead of riding the wave by introducing us to another higher priced watch, they're actually kind of sort of giving back with their new collection. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you the next time. So earlier I asked this question. No, I didn't actually ask it yet. So the artist Thelma Klynt, no, I think Thelma? Hilma. So the artist Hilma. And the second kicker, and the second kickstart, no, yeah, that was right. And the second kicker is their size. It will be in 40 mil.